Go. Hey, gang, it's Jimmy, Arkansas First News with facts, not fiction. Big deal up in Fort Smith in the last few days. Kind of a crazy story. There are controversies, and then there are manufactured controversies. We're gonna get into something today and let you decide on that. Robert Taylor is an English teacher at Fort Smith Northside High School. And last Thursday or Friday, I can't remember which it was, a big concern came up over a subject in a test he was doing in his class concerning the plights of the Little Rock Nine. If you don't know who the Little Rock Nine are or anything about them, you probably need to go ahead and move on because I'm not going to spend time telling you if you don't know history. But it's really an issue that really strikes home to the people of the state of Arkansas and the people in Little Rock. And what happened was there was a problem with the N word being used in a test question. Now, is that really a problem, or is it just people taking things, to a level that it doesn't need to be? And so we thought we would get Robert on today, and he's joining us. And also is on with us is his attorney, Joey McCutcheon. Now, Joey's, if you're looking at your screen, Joey's the one in the ball cap. And so, but Joey, to be completely transparent, I've known Joey several years. Joey and I do a lot of work together. Joey's represented me in cases before on corruption in government and is currently representing me in two cases in corruption in government. Now, Robert, I've never met before in my life and didn't know anything about him till I started learning about this story. And so I reached out, once I learned a little about it, I actually reached out to Joey to see if he wouldn't mind he and his client coming on to talk about it because, like I say, it's a story that's not getting the full truth out. So we're going to start by that. Robert, Joey, how you guys doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing
Good.
fine, Jimmy. Thank you.
Let's start. I want to take this. I want to take this A to Z, but before we do, let's find out a little bit about you. How long have you taught at Northside High School?
Well, I've taught at Northside my entire teaching career. I've been there for 23 years. I started there, and as of February 13th, Thursday, that's my most recent day.
Great, great. And over those 23 years, how many students would you estimate that you've taught?
At least 2,500. We have a maximum of 130 per class, and sometimes this year, for instance, I only have 100 or so in my on my roster.
Okay. And do you live in Fort Smith?
Yes, I've lived in Fort Smith my entire life. The only time, or for since I moved here at age 5, I've lived here my entire life, only moving as far away as Fayetteville before returning to Fort Smith.
Okay. All right, great. And let's go ahead and start. Like I say, I don't want to jump in the middle where the so-called controversy began, but how it got there. So you teach an English class, correct?
Yes, I this year I teach English. I have 5 classes of English and 1 supervisory class, just watching students. But right now it is all 11th grade English, which is termed American literature, and it's taught in chronological order.
Okay.
The history and fabric of our language.
Great. And when you see me looking around, I've got two screens here with notes and everything. Okay. So tell me about the lesson that you were going to teach in that class about the plight of the Little Rock Nine.
The lesson was designed to help reinforce our social studies classes, which have moved into the Cold War period. My unit was specifically to show how our America respond to the Cold War era, where we are having a war at the Soviets to Cold War, not a hot war, to keep communism from spreading, promoting how wonderful democracy is and the freedoms that we allow every human. Yet at the same time this war begins, we are denying the rights and the freedoms of many Americans, African American in fact, and that the hot point of our nation's response to this was in Little Rock in 1957. And I thought of no better way to do this than to use the actual words of a young girl their age, to show the injustices she had to suffer to get a very hard-earned education.
You're talking about one of the nine, which was Melba Beals, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
Wound up being a journalist and a teacher, so she is well spoken. She knows how to write with power. She knows how to choose the words to make a person feel, see, and hear the event as if you're actually there.
that is such a key point. And she wrote a book titled Warriors Don't Cry, which I'm going to bring up later and say how that relates to actually what this situation is. But in that book, and I haven't read the entire book, but I have tried to study and get the point of it. And she really digs in deep to the resolve and conviction it took to do what she did, and even talks quite a bit in the book about a gentleman named Danny who was one of the 101st Airborne that the federal government sent in to actually bodyguard her. And how she felt about him, and that basically she couldn't have probably got through that without him instilling in her that warrior attitude, so to speak. And you talked about how to visualize that. Is that what you try to get your students to understand when you put that content out there? Is to teach them and to emphasize them about reading material so that they can visualize it?
Exactly. I don't think that a dry textbook lets the students walk in the shoes of those who have experienced it. That's why our school district has encouraged us in the English department, specifically the American literature 11th grade, to work with our social studies teacher, American history teachers, to make certain we can show them those deeper words, the deeper meanings through literature, not just the facts that you get in the history. It can help the student connect more with why our nation is what it is today.
Now, in that book, there's a section where Melba describes that she's trying to walk into the school, and she is surrounded by white students, and she's attacked. And she's violently kicked in the legs to the point that she hits the ground. And while she's on the ground, she's being kicked in the stomach. And she's actually calling out or trying to get the attention of Danny, the 101st Airborne soldier assigned to protect her. And he gets there and tells the students to back off, because in the book she details how he says he cannot physically engage with the students. In fact, he says his job is to keep her alive, but he's got rules of engagement to do that. And she vividly recalls that while she was laying on the ground, there were shouts of "the nigger is down." And this is her writing it in the book. That's not me saying it. Okay. That's what Melba said. And the description of that brutality and how she writes that is such an effect on the visualization of someone reading it. Would you agree with that?
I agree wholeheartedly. There's no way to enhance the dry history that American history is offering without giving a personal representation. For my students who are the exact same age as she is, the very first question I had for my students that day, what's known as a bell ringer, is what was your first day like at a new school? Have you ever been at a new school? If not, what was your first day like at our school or at a middle school?
Sure. And so now we're going to kind of jump forward, because the reason I wanted to get that quote in the book out, because that's where the so-called controversy, or what I'll just go ahead and contend from everything I've studied on it now, is a manufactured controversy. Because the school has an approved AI software that helps teachers prepare lesson plans and prepare tests, right?
That is correct. It's very helpful. I mean, I used to spend hours upon hours to create a lesson like this, not just writing questions, but finding the best text to represent my students and the content that we have. So when it came time to look at the particular material and create the work, I have to have a little bit of assistance to be able to do this every single day. The AI program is very good at doing that. And quite honestly, I'm shocked that they would uh, be, appalled by something that we've been authorized to use and blame
That's
me for this
that's that's the
mistake.
other thing. I want to for clarity for people listening. This is not a device that you brought the software and that's personally yours. This is what the school uses and the district has approved this software. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
AI can be very helpful.
Okay. And so in this instance, it created test questions. And so tell me about the test question it created that has so many people up in arms.
Well, first off, I debate the use of the word test question. This is a guided reading questions. These are a current lesson. A test is a review of the material. This is ongoing as we read it to help the students clarify what's happening and understand what they're reading. All right.
So
Uh,
this wasn't actually a test. This was
no,
like a guide, a review, a guide to help the students learn how to comprehend. Is that correct?
that's correct. I not all my students are on an 11th grade reading level. Okay.
No. I can
So,
give you the stats from Fort Smith School District, and I don't think anybody at the school is on an 11th grade reading.
and our general population as well. However, because we cannot offer a lot of homework to students because many of them work in the evening, they don't, the school does not encourage us to assign homework that requires a lot of time out of their practice. So I make certain I read that out loud for my students who may be on even a third grade level, as well as a college plus level, that everyone hears the complete content and knows what we're doing. The guided reading questions are to make certain that that the entire passage is read, and that if at any point during that they can ask me what that means or interrupt the discussion.
Okay. Tell us what this particular reading question was.
This particular question was dealing with literary techniques, literary devices. I had two things I had requested the AI to do was to create questions on comprehension and literary devices. All right. The comprehension questions are the ones that asking factual things. The literary device questions are asking us things such as, in this particular instance, it's alliteration. In other areas, it might be irony. It might be this. So that by the 11th grade, they should be well versed in these things. But of the 150 plus standards that the state of Arkansas has us do, we focus on specific ones, guaranteed by the time they graduate, you know these things for sure. And
Okay.
so
So what was the question? What was the question asked?
it was asking specifically, is the N word, the N word is down. And it asks, what type of literary device is this? A metaphor?
But
Yeah,
but the controversy that
alliteration.
so many people have with this is it didn't say the N word, it said the nigger is down.
Those
And
are the actual words of Melba Patilla Beals.
right,
Those are the
it's just a
words from
quote
the
from
text. But, I'm not going to say those out loud. I never say those words out loud, and I have never said those words out loud, that word out loud.
so this is AI generating this, and it took a quote from the book from Melba, not from you, but from Melba. and generated that reading question, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. So that spurred some people to push back. So tell us what happened when that pushback. Did the administration, who came to you?
Well, the first person who came to me was one of my co-teachers, one of the teachers that I work with who care about me and love me. They said, "Hey, there's a huge storm on Facebook. My wife has just texted me this. She said to come to me and protect that man." And I said, "Whatever for?" And he said, "It's one of the questions in your lesson." And I said, "Well, then let's go immediately to Principal Carter to talk about it." We meet him in the hallway, and before he can even, I tell him I hear there's a controversy. Before he can tell me anything about his perspective, he says, "Get it down, take it off." Virtually, those were his words. It wasn't hide it, which is evidently what is happening. We want to hide that this has ever happened, but the genie is out of the bottle. Toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back. Should have been a question of an investigation of what we're doing. What do we teach? After 23 years, should be some sort of trust that I have the intellect to present a material that is appropriate and challenging, or as the district likes to say, rigorous. They want us to be rigorous. Yet when we are rigorous and it becomes uncomfortable, and you and I both know that the greatest learning only comes through uncomfortable situations.
That's right.
They do not support you. They hang you out to dry.
No, that is a fact. I've seen it all over the state of Arkansas. So what happened next? Carter says, "Hey, take it down." What happens next?
I go back to the classroom. I look at the text and I say, "Oh, I see the question that may be causing the issue. I'll remove it." So I remove the question because I feel that, if this is what my principal wants, I'll do that. So I go back to him and tell him I removed the question. He says, "You need to take it all down." So I took the whole lesson out at that point, and then I get a request by the assistant principal to come see Mr. Carter again right before the next class. This happens during a planning period. I have first and second hour. So that is when I'm teaching class and the controversy arises.
Now, let me interrupt just real quick. So I just want everybody to be clear. When Robert says Mr. Carter, he's talking about the Fort Smith High School principal. And so go ahead, Robert.
All right. So right before fourth period begins, the assistant principal comes in and says, "You got to see Mr. Carter again." I go in to see him, and he says, "You need to go to the office. Go see Mr. Davis. Go up to the administrative office." Nothing more than that. I'm thinking I'm going there to explain what the lesson was about. I don't get that. I show up there and they give me, "You're on administrative leave." And I got to go back to the building to get my material, chargers, prints, paint, or something like that. And they say, "No, you can't go back in the building. We'll bring it out to you." So all they do is they bring out my satchel, all my other materials. I have a gift from a student that made me my first year teaching. They built me a beautiful wood podium and wood shop. They gifted that to me because they thought I had done such a wonderful job. They liked me as a teacher. That's in the classroom still.
Did he give you a letter?
A letter?
A letter of notice of putting you on paid administratively.
Yes, he did. He put me on notice of paid administrative leave, that there would be an investigation, but I was not to be talking to any students, any parents of students, nor any staff members of Northside.
Right. Basically, what they're doing is they're banning you from campus. You're not right now. You're not even allowed to set foot on district properties right now. Is that
That's correct. I cannot enter the building.
What reason? There's two questions I got. First, I want to know what Assistant Superintendent Davis verbally gave you the reason was for putting you on administrative leave. And then I want to know if they put something in the letter giving the reason.
No, there was no reason given.
None verbally.
Right.
Well, I think there was a reason, wasn't there? I can get the letter. I mean, let me get the letter, but I want to make
Sure,
sure on that point. Yeah.
sure,
Oh, they
because
did use, I'm sorry, they did use the word, it was the offensive language that I had used offensive language and was being put in on administrative language for using, our administrative leave for using offensive language.
all right, pending outcome of the investigation, right?
Right.
Okay, but they didn't, in the letter, they didn't specify what that language was, right?
No, not
Okay.
say anything about a racial slur.
Did Assistant Superintendent Davis expand after that at all, or did he just say, hey, go home?
He said, just go, paraphrasing, just go home. I said, I have
Okay.
material at Northside. He goes, well,
So
I'll text.
you've been there 23 years, you've known these people a long time, and how taken back were you from that? It wasn't a, hey, Robert, man, we got to talk. You know, I hate this for you, but here's what we got to do. It wasn't anything like that, was it? It was just like, hey, get going.
That's it. That's correct.
How taken back were you by that?
I was shell shocked. I had no idea what was going on, and I was maybe naive into thinking that, well, we'll get an investigation and we'll be able to proceed with this, but it's all silence on their end, and the social media storm is just blowing up with no response from the district. Random people says, hey, wait a minute, folks, we don't have all the facts here. We don't know what's going on. And
So have you heard from the district since your conversation with Davis?
well, after the news stories come out on Friday night, I had to leave town on Saturday. I was out of town. So on Sunday morning, I see that I'd received a message from Assistant Superintendent Davis, who said, could you send us a copy of the lesson? Could you send us a copy of the text? So only after my chance to get some of my story out do they say, hey, wait a minute, let's see what he's saying. Because there was a lot of positive response to what occurred once our friends at Channel 5 and Channel 40 were able to actually ask me what had happened.
Well, they did want to do an interview on Friday morning.
Yes. I apologize for that. There was a meeting scheduled for 8:45 a.m. on Friday. And they said I was welcome to bring a representative. So Thursday evening, I had been trying to get in touch with the McCutcheon law firm to see if they could assist me. And at that point, Joey called me back and said, I think there's a bit of injustice going on here. Your story's not getting out. And so
they did want to do an interview the next morning. I called the school district based upon my prior experiences with the same school district on things that are very similar to this, where frankly, I don't have a great deal of trust in this school administration based upon particularly my representation of Felix Curry and other matters. So I knew that they would probably want to have their lawyer present. So I called Mr. Davis directly and said, I will be present with Mr. Taylor. If you want to have your lawyer present, fine. But so we agreed that we would kick the can down the road.
And
so let me back up here. So once they found out you were representing Robert, then they weren't so quick to want to have that meeting.
Well, I think they wanted to have their lawyer present.
Yeah. Okay. And so social media hit, here we go, news stories. Robert, do you feel like that the initial barrage on social media was basically a reaction to something that most people aren't informed of all the truth and what's behind all this?
Can I add something here quickly?
Sure.
What happened before I got involved was that the school district sent out a press release and basically sold Mr. Taylor down the river to protect themselves, and that's what was really disgusting. They had no context of the situation at that point. They never heard that this was text from Melba Bill's book, and they, in essence, act like that Mr. Taylor had just made a racial slur and that they did not condone that. And
Actually,
without giving any context, without protecting their employee in the least bit, and in my estimation, they precipitated a media or a firestorm on Facebook. And not only that, they did not do their investigation on the front end, and they were responding to a community activist who was on Facebook saying, "You better have this corrected in 5 minutes. I'm on my way down there." And that is no way to run a school district.
I've got what they put out, and I want to read it so the people listening get it. Fort Smith Public Schools has been informed of an incident in which a teacher used inappropriate and offensive language in a classroom test at Northside High School. The use of such language, whether in speech, writing, or any other form, is completely unacceptable and does not reflect the values of the district. Appropriate steps are being taken to assure accountability. There's two things there. When they say a teacher used inappropriate offensive language, that's number one. Basically, they've already decided. That's them saying that we've decided, okay, without due process. At the end, when they say appropriate steps should be taken to ensure accountability, isn't that getting out over the skis, Joey? In a sense that, hey, we're not even allowing due process before we made a decision, and we're deciding on accountability when we haven't even started the investigation.
Yeah, accountability for what? I mean, he was teaching a lesson that was from Melba Bills, her own words. So accountability for what? How do you what is the need for accountability? But they're way out over their skis. They haven't even done an investigation, nor did they ask, as I would suspect most school districts would do. They would get their employee in and they would find out exactly what the lesson was, the who, what, whens, whys, and ask appropriate questions so that they could then tailor a message for the public. But they immediately responded to a community activist. And my suspicions are it was because they're feeling a little bit sensitive about firing a black football coach at Northside High School when they're not firing a lot of other white football coaches. So I think that's the context here.
Robert, I got two questions, and I think you'll understand the reason I'm asking both. The N-word, you've been teaching at Northside High School 23 years.
Yes, sir.
How many times have you heard the N-word from students in those 23 years? How many times have you heard students in the hallways in class, outside the parking lot, on the football field? How many times have you heard students use the N-word?
Easily every single day. In fact, I had heard it 5 times at least previous while I was on duty that morning beforehand.
Have you ever seen a student? Have you ever seen a student suspended from school for using the N-word?
No, not that I can recollect.
Yet AI generates this, and you didn't even say it. AI generates it in the form of a reading question, and you're immediately suspended.
That is correct.
Do you find that? Do you see that as ironic or hypocritical?
I actually teach irony, and that is one of the literary devices that we work. And this would be called bitter irony, and that sometimes you can have humorous irony. But the bitter fact of it all is I'm trying to teach about the mob mentality destroying our freedoms, the mob mentality destroying the opportunities of African Americans to make a difference in the world through education, through bettering themselves, to break the generational cycle of poverty. I'm trying to tell our students that do not take for granted this education that you have. Look what has happened to a girl your age. It could be you. And I'm being ridden out on the mob mentality with the pitchforks and torch.
Since you bring that up, I was going to ask this question a little later, but I want to go ahead and ask it.
Can I jump in real quick here?
Sure, sure.
Number one, he's never used that phrase toward a student. Never, ever. And secondly, this was a lesson where he was using the words of a victim of injustice, Melba Bills, and teaching a lesson and not just throwing out a word like they seem to suggest in their press release.
I want to go back to it so everybody's clear. These are not Robert's words. These are Melba's words. Okay.
That is correct.
And kind of to that point about Melba, you seem to have a passion for teaching history of wrongs done, which what happened at Central High was wrong, the racism was wrong, the whole 9 yards. And you seem to have a passion for teaching that history so that history doesn't repeat itself. We forget things unless we're reminded of them, right? So in your goal to do that, and how you and I listened to the recording of you telling the story of Melbourne, talking about this subject, and I could really hear the passion in your voice on that issue, and how you felt about it. And so since this has all happened, and I'm not saying that putting you on Melba's level in any way, does this make you even appreciate, now that you're facing a mob mentality, does this make you even appreciate more what she went through?
Well, not only that, I began to grab the words that she learned from Danny. He said, "You have to be a warrior. You're in a battle now." And I learned something from that young teenage girl that is helping me at this moment. We don't get to choose the moments when we're a warrior. We just have to react to them. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Let me interject my opinion in here, because I'm not asking you if this is how you feel or how Joey feels. I'm just going to say how I feel. For all of you people out there that have taken this out of context, that have reacted without investigating, reacted without finding the evidence, reacted without digging in and seeing what actually happened here, for all you people that did that, and now I want all you people to go look at the title of her book, where she says, "Warriors Don't Cry." This sounds like most of these people are absolutely crying. And I would contend that Melba would not act the way they are acting right now. Now, that's my opinion. I just want to throw that in there. Let me get back to the state standards. Does this in any way, your lesson plan, the PowerPoint, the AI generated review questions, reading questions, did any of that, even that in particular question, did any of that violate Arkansas Department of Education standards?
I do not believe so.
Okay. And we have books. In that book that you use, okay, Warriors Don't Cry, does anything in that book violate Arkansas Department of Education standards?
I do not believe so. That may be above my pay grade. As far as I know, history, text, the literature.
So I guess where I'm going with that, if the state standards and the Arkansas Department of Education have no problem with a book with a quote from Melba that states when she was on the ground, they were yelling, "The nigger is down." If that's not violating standards, I'm having a hard problem trying to see why the administration has a problem with how AI generated that question and that reading question. Am I off base there in any way?
Well, the only thing I can say is that Arkansas is behind right now on our materials available. The current textbook that all the district was using is not matching the curriculum we are to prepare. We are only supposed to start American literature as well as American history at the beginning of the crash, the Roaring Twenties. You have that time. So any of our literature before then, anything such as the Gettysburg Address, anything such as our founding fathers, anything such as Emily Dickinson poetry, any of that, we're skipping over. We don't address that. We start right there. Now, their defense is these areas in history are already covered in civics or government, which they might have had at 7th or 8th grade. Now, Jimmy, I am starting a year. This is my first year to teach junior English in 10 years. And this may be the first year that they're offering the fact that we teach from 1929 forward. All right. Given that, where am I supposed to gather all this material?
Right.
If I have to wait for a full year, in the meantime, twiddle my thumbs because I've only got a quarter of the textbook to draw material, approved, state approved textbook to have. Or do I actually spend my time at night, hours, reading through anthologies to find the material that can reach a student?
And I want to switch gears, but I want to just real quickly address this because I think you've already done it in the meeting. If you reviewed it very quickly, but you didn't notice the question, but if you could change anything about that question, one, would you take the spelling Nigger out and use the N word? And two, would you make the question a little bit different?
The only thing I would have done is change the question as far as I wouldn't have removed the words. I wouldn't have changed the quote. I wouldn't have done anything at that. I would have changed it so that it would have said, how does this reflect charged language? How is this a more charged language? That might have helped make it a little more palatable for my students. As far as a literary device, there are much better ways to show alliteration. And
Okay.
It's a very hard stretch for that to be alliteration, but that's a problem with AI. It's not all, unless you're very, very, very specific about things, which I was not aware that this was something that I should be saying ahead of time. Make it a standard question. Don't put any offensive language in here. So I would not have changed the word, only the reason for that quote being in there.
All right, you've been a punching bag for the last few days. Okay. And
yes.
I tell everybody it's easy to punch a bag that doesn't punch back. And so when I say that, I'm not asking you to punch back, but I do want to get your thoughts on something. Angel Carter, a parent, had done the interview with 4029, and she had said that she had complained about you before, and that the district was had done something about it, and so she was basically trying to make the narrative that you had been doing this type of behavior for quite some time. Do you remember Angel Carter as a parent, and do you remember her registering any complaints against you?
No, I do not remember her as a parent, nor her registering any complaints against me.
Okay. The 4029 reporter went on to say that students say they've complained before. That's an easy statement to make. And, okay, what do you mean by students? 2 students or 200 students? And she said one of those students was Tavia Ellis, and she did go and include, which is Angel Carter's daughter. Okay. And Tavia said in an interview, and this is a quote, that she had had several racial encounters with the teacher, meaning you. Do you remember Tavia Ellis?
No, I do not. I've taught several courses. I had yearbook journalism, and as she said, this was 3 years ago. Yearbook journalism, only 1 year that I taught that. That was last year. So she had graduated 3 years ago. No. And then before that, it was senior English, which is British literature. I never would have taught uh, this, but no, I do not remember her, nor would I have ever had teaching British literature had an opportunity for that to appear in the selections available.
She claims that she went to the administration with complaints about you as a student, and that the district said that the district had taken care of everything. I want to go back to this. Okay, first let's do this. Have you ever had a complaint, administration come to with a complaint about you having a racial encounter with any student?
No, I will have occasionally a administrative assistant principal say, "Are you having any problems in your class?" No, I can't even give you any instances. Nothing has ever been about racial instances.
Okay.
But they won't give me the name of the student. I'll ask who is, and they go, I can't, I won't tell you that. So, what in the world can I do? And when they won't
Right.
identify your accusers nor point out specific
Okay. In your 23 years, okay, have you had any letters of caution issued to you or any written reprimands?
I believe I may have one or two. At one point, I was being required to change a rigorous assignment I had for my advanced placement students for integrating computer technology into learning. I had a very rigorous one, and I was required to replace it with a third grade level grammar
Third grade
assignment.
level.
And my students were not liking it, and I did not want to do it, but I got written up. I think I may have been written up for that. That was a very long time ago. The other time I was had to sign a note was when a student was complaining that I was teaching the Bible, because the piece of literature, this again is senior literature, is the King James Bible. One of the most beautiful selections is the story of the prodigal son. So the parent was very upset that I was teaching the Bible as if I'm holding some sort of Sunday school lesson, though the message of that particular passage is about forgiveness and love. That's what the message was of that particular text. But I had to sign a note saying that I would make certain I had alternative lessons available. Well, that's after the fact had happened. Had I had been aware that this was something that needed to be done ahead of time, we possibly could. But that means that for every single lesson I have, do I have to do alternate lessons because one person's going to be offended?
Okay, so in 23 years, as far as your lessons, you've only had basically two complaints. How many lesson plans would you just estimate in 23 years you've created?
Well, you have over 140 days of instruction, so you have to have a lesson every single day. And sometimes if you have 2 or 3 different classes, you have to have more than that. So in a single year, I could have had up to 300. So multiply that by 20, it's probably what, 60,000?
Okay, so we're going to say, so out of all those lessons plans in 23 years of over 60,000, you've had two complaints.
Well, the other one wasn't from a student. It was from
No,
from
with
the
parents,
administration
but
that I
that's my
wasn't.
point. Out of over 60,000, administrations only had to come to you twice out of over 60,000 lesson plans in 23 years.
Yes, I think so.
I think that speaks for itself. Okay, we're gonna get this thing wrapped up. Before we do, I'm gonna finish because I want to get Robert, for you to tell me how you're feeling right now and what you'd like to see positive come out of that. But before we get that, I'm gonna hit Joey real quick. Joey, administratively, where are we sitting right now in this?
Well, we will, according to the HR, Chris Davis, who I've dealt with over the last 6 months multiple times. He wants to do an interview with Mr. Taylor. And so I'm sure we will be setting up an interview this week so that they can do any type of investigation that they want to do. So that's kind of where we stand at this point.
Okay. Robert, take just a minute. Give your feelings in a message to the citizens of Fort Smith, the students, the school, and everybody. Just give us your message real quick.
I would like to say that I am not the first, nor will I be the last teacher that is thrown under the bus to protect the administration from the slings and arrows of a population that's hugely upset over the way they're handling the education of their children. I do not blame in one instant a parent who says, I've got to go to social media. Why? Because they don't trust the school district enough to address it personally with a teacher, personally with a student. They're banging on a door that stays closed. You may have to FOIA everything you ask of this to get to the truth for our public to find out what's happening there. I am ready to fight, and I'm ready to fight the good fight. I don't think that they will ever have me back, but I want to continue to offer opportunity for those who are oppressed, for those who, the real thing is, we've got a cycle of generational poverty that is keeping our state's population in ignorance and an inability to lift themselves up to a higher plane. And that's what I want to continue doing, whether it's not just about the Little Rock Nine. It's not just about Black History Month. Literature is all about conflict. And if I can teach our children how people in the past have dealt with conflict through literature, it will help them when they achieve that. Whether it's something from The Great Gatsby, where people wreck other people's lives. How do you handle someone who just doesn't care about other people? You learn that from that piece of literature. We learn about overcoming injustice in this particular unit.
You have people out there right now trying to assassinate your character. I'm not asking you if you condone that, okay? But do you forgive those people?
Well, I forgive them, as I just said a moment ago, because they feel that this is the only way they can fix things. Now, if I am the one who is thrown on the fire, I know that my daughters believe me. I know that my ex-wife believes in me. I know that my family, my sisters believe in me. And I know that the vast majority of my friends at Northside believe in me. And I have many friends and members of the community that are supporting me who know me. And those who don't know me are the ones who are upset and frustrated. And I forgive that they are upset and frustrated. I mean, I'm not the first one to say, Father, please forgive them. They don't know what they do.
Let me finish with this on my point is I want to say this publicly, and I will try to reach out. I'll try to find how to contact Angel Carter and her daughter Tavia. But if you two are watching this, my phone number is 501-412-9520. Would love to have that discussion with both of you. Would love to, and I'll give you a fair deal. You can come on the podcast and I'll give you a chance to present what you want to say, and we can have that back and forth. So there's a fair deal for you.
Yeah, and Jimmy, I would just say that sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Allegations aren't facts. I mean, somebody can get out here and say, well, Mr. Taylor treated me unfairly, or I'm uncomfortable. What are you uncomfortable about? I mean, just to throw out generalities. We need we want some proof. And I'll tell you what, I believe in this gentleman. When I spent on Friday, probably 4, 5, 6 hours with him so I could get to know him, I believe 100%. I know what his family has always stood for in the city of Fort Smith. and I know what he stands for as a teacher. And any racist teacher out there is not going to be teaching that lesson. I can assure you of that. In fact, he's probably on Sarah Huckabee's list at this point for teaching indoctrination to our students on woke ideas, would be her take on it.
Probably would. And guys, we're gonna get out of here. Let me finish with this, and then we'll get going. People that know me and follow me know that I investigate things, and when I do that, I don't determine outcomes of investigations. My investigations determine those outcomes, and I've done a lot of looking into this since it happened. And so far, what I can find is that there is no evidence of racism whatsoever exhibited by Robert Taylor. None. And you're talking to a guy that knows racism, okay? I've seen it firsthand. I was raised in deep in Lonoke County, 8 miles down a dirt road. So you can imagine in the 60s and 70s, I've seen how people were treated. I've seen actual racism firsthand, and I've seen how ugly and how brutal it can be. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, Robert, I'm not seeing you as a racist at all. I mean, not even close. And so we want to get out of here with that. I would just encourage people instead of reacting, look into things, get all the facts before you form your opinions and beliefs. You have a right to your opinions and beliefs, whether I agree with them or not. The only thing that I wish is before people would just react off a headline or something somebody asserts with no evidence to back it up, that you take the time, because my hashtag is facts, not fiction. Whatever the facts are, they are, and we'll call it like it is. Guys, I really appreciate y'all coming on today with me. Robert, I really appreciate it too, because I know this was emotional for you. I know it's hard to talk about, and but we really appreciate it, and I think the people will really appreciate that you were willing to get out here and talk about it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Joey.
Thank you.